Hey everybody, I'm going to carry on with my VOA analysis from episode to episode to see if my original theories were way off base or if OA is a mentally ill individual. Now, these are all my notes from episode 1 and where I categorize them as angel, inconclusive, or liar. I'm actually going to change angel to truth because the more I think about it, OA can be telling the truth, but that doesn't necessarily prove that she's an angel. So yes, I am looking at this from the skeptic's point of view and from someone who has quite a bit of experience dealing with mentally ill individuals. But if I do find out that there is overwhelming evidence that I just missed or looked over or didn't pay enough attention to, then I am willing to admit that I was wrong and she is an angel. But alright, continuing from my notes from episode 1, adding in my notes from episode 2. In the lies column, I am going to put that Nina's dad, Azarov, says to stop speaking Russian until they meet again. For someone who is a compulsive liar, they're going to go through their stories and find reasons to not be doing certain things like speaking Russian. So to say, oh, my dad told me not to speak Russian until we meet again, is a really good, plausible excuse for why she wouldn't be speaking in Russian or have a thick Russian accent. So just the fact that OA bothers to put in that detail makes me think that she is not being truthful in that statement. Now my next big note goes right into the lies column again because OA talks about her story of how Nancy and Abel found her in the illegal Russian adoption house. And OA describes the conversation between her Aunt Zoya, Nancy, and Abel, but she shouldn't know anything of what they're talking about. That scene should have started with Nancy coming up the stairs and finding OA, because from OA's memories, from her perspective, she wasn't there. She can have no idea what was being said. And again, it's kind of an adjacent issue for I think thou doth protest too much. You know too many details that you shouldn't. I'm going to go up here to the truth column and I'm going to put in the issue where OA talks about when she was little, Abel would get up and record her at night having these night terrors in Russian. But what I think is really weird about it is that they don't translate anything she's saying in Russian. And every other time the series has shown anyone speaking in Russian, if it was audible, they translated it. So to not translate what OA is saying in her night terrors as a child, it makes me kind of wonder if she's speaking Russian or if they think they're just hearing Russian. But I put this in the truth column because OA finds this camera with her screaming in Russian as a kid in the room right after she comes back from the hospital. And that's not a flashback. That's not OA telling us a story. That's happening in real time and we're there with her. So I find that a believable moment. When Nancy and Abel take young Prairie to see a psychologist, he says that Prairie's exhibiting signs of extreme mental illness. Blind children are extraordinarily imaginative, but this is different. We're dealing with a psychosis. And if you really, really want to believe in OA's story, then you can say, oh, they just don't know what they're talking about because this is supernatural. But this kind of evidence is what I keep talking about, where it really stretches and tests the limits of what you can accept and believe just because you like OA. We have a trained medical doctor who has been through thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of cases of dealing with children who have mental disorders. And he says Prairie is showing signs of mental disorders. That's not something that we should take lightly and just dismiss it. We need to really pay attention and take that as an established fact because it's going to contradict a lot of what OA has to say later. After that, we see little Prairie in the bathtub and Nancy's helping her wash her hair. And when Prairie puts her hair back in the water, she gets this PTSD thing like she was drowning before. Now, I'm not saying that she could not have been in a drowning situation or she could never have been in a bus that went into a lake. That could have happened and she could have severe PTSD from it, but nothing about that suggests that it's supernatural. It suggests to me that she does have something like PTSD. In the inconclusive column, I'm going to put the comment about how OA says she was medicated for 13 years, but she still had premonitions. And I'm going to wait to decide if that is a supernatural kind of thing, or if that's just that the pills she was taking didn't help with all of her psychoses. In the truth category, I'm going to give OA credit for where she talks about her dream where she sees the Statue of Liberty and she gets the nosebleed. And since I can't explain away the nosebleeds or the smells that she described before in her dreams in episode 1, I have to give her credit in the truth angel category because I don't have a way to discredit it. And now, after watching the series before, I can go back and kind of pick out contradictions that I kept talking about more than I was able to in my initial theories. And one of those big contradictions is that in episode 2, OA says that she just up and disappeared from her parents' house, like no big deal, she didn't tell anybody anything and just took off. But towards the end of the series, I know that Nancy says she had a note the entire time. So she didn't disappear, she told them where she was going, and she just didn't come home. And those are such different things of I completely disappeared and they had no idea, and I left a note saying I was going to go find my real dad. Those are so different. And since OA should know that she left the note, it doesn't make any sense why she would describe it that way, except if she's lying to people or trying to mislead them. I also hated that OA claims to have just up and vanished and gone all the way to New York City, and then it doesn't show her go up in the Statue of Liberty. It doesn't show her ever open up her violin case and play her instrument while she's on that island. But her vision very specifically showed her going up in the head of the Statue of Liberty, and she brought her violin because her father said he could recognize her within 3 notes of her playing. So if she really believed he was there, and they haven't seen each other since about 1995, why would she not play her violin? And why would she not go all the way to the top of the head where she actually saw her father at in her vision? But then she goes to the subway and starts playing her violin to attract her father. And again, this makes no sense. She never had a vision of finding him on the subway. And in line with all these other contradictions, OA says, "My plan worked, but it wasn't my father who found me." Well, her whole plan was to play so that her father would find her. So how is it that her plan worked exactly? It's just one more contradictory statement that doesn't make sense, but it sounds good, so people kind of go with it without analyzing what she actually said. Not to mention the fact, why would her father contact her through the premonition system when her father didn't believe in them in the first place? That's why he made her jump into the frozen lake. Okay, I'm going back up to the inconclusive section down the middle, and I'm putting in the text from Jess, where he sent the picture of the messed up bridge and said it was from 1995, and then he had another picture with, I'm not really sure what's going on in here. It looks like some kind of tree or pole fell over in the water. And there are boats in the background and the Russian military guy in the foreground. So he found something that happened in Russia in 1995, but we have no idea what it really is. It doesn't prove that OA was telling the truth. It just proves that something happened, because if there was a whole story about it being a bus full of little kids that fell off the bridge, I think they would have said, here's all this information that corroborates what OA has been telling us. But that's not what happened. He just found some pictures. Another detail I don't know what to do with yet, but I'm going to put it here in the middle just in case it comes back later. The counselor that French talks to has a New York City Statue of Liberty snow globe on his desk. And again, down the middle column for not sure what to do with it, it's inconclusive. If you notice, when they introduce us to French's mom, she is a master manipulator. And no matter what French tries to say or how he tries to kind of subtly call her on her crap, she just changes the conversation so that she's always right. And I think that's why French is about as skeptical as I am about OA, because he's dealt with people that have these kind of mental disturbances before. And now we have this middle column just cooking along here, and as I go through other episodes, I might say, okay, now this goes over to this side, this goes over to that side. But for right now, just based on what we've seen in episode 1 and episode 2, this is where I'm putting it. And that's that the group of 5 really start to risk things starting in episode 2 so that they can hear OA's story. And that makes them more inclined and more dependent to believe in her, because they're risking things that are of value to themselves, like French's scholarship and Buck's testosterone. So now the group is really getting more invested in having to believe what she has to say, otherwise they're stupid. After OA does the second meeting with the group of 5, she comes home and Nancy sees her coming back, and she lies and says, oh, I was just going for a walk, no big deal. Now my issue there is that it makes things very complicated, because if OA does truly believe that she is the original Angel, she should be saying it loud and proud to everyone who will listen. But the fact that she holds back and only tells certain people in certain conditions and certain environments, and she sets it up as this very supernatural thing so that she can get the disciples out of the group of 5, which is ultimately what happens, that's not really crazy. That's not an I believe it in my soul kind of crazy. That's the kind of persuasion that we would expect to see out of cult leaders. So the fact that OA lies to Nancy means that she's not definitively crazy in thinking that she's an angel, but she could still be up to something very delusional. And like I mentioned earlier with the conversation between Zoya, Nancy, and Abel that OA should know nothing about, she also knows exactly when and where and how Hap is able to hear her in the subway, even to the detail that he has to pull out an earplug and find her way far away from where the train was letting out, which should not have been possible. Now, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. I'm coming back up to truth. Hap is very nice to OA. I do believe that Hap found OA in the subway station. I believe that he led her off to go eat and he was very nice to her. He fed her ego. He told her, oh, I would have never let you be medicated. He told her about his study, and then he took this girl with a lot of daddy issues and whipped her up in this mental state of being puffed up and feeling loved and just having her ego stroked. And he does this until OA gets so enamored with Hap that she asks to go be part of his study. And I really, truly, truly believe that happened. And I also truly believe that OA learned over the years how to be manipulative and how to persuade people the same way that Hap has done. She unintentionally became his biggest protege, and if you really study how Hap behaves throughout the series and how he has these moments where he's very nice and he kind of reels you in and he makes you feel secure and he makes you feel like you want to believe in him, that's very similar to how OA behaves when she's telling her story to the group of 5. But now I'm going to go right back over to the inconclusive section. And I've got to say this, Hap lets OA call her parents from his house on a landline. Now, assuming that this takes place in 2016 when the series released, then OA was abducted in 2009. Caller ID was very, very common by 2009. And truly, even at that age, I would think that Nancy and Abel would have caller ID at their house to see, oh look, we missed a call from this weird number, and hey, our daughter went missing. Maybe we should put 2 and 2 together and give that number to the police. Since it's a landline, it would be easily trackable, especially back in 2009. But I'm more curious as to what would have happened if they had answered the phone. Because Hap was letting that happen willingly, and if nothing else, that phone number should have shown up on their call records report. So I'm not really certain if the call was real or if the call was part of Hap's illusion to make OA feel really safe with him. But assuming she actually made the call and she supposedly heard the phone ringing and just nobody answered, I'm just going to keep scratching my head and wondering why nobody tracked down that number and tried to investigate it and what Hap would have done if they would have picked up. Right after Hap locks OA into her cage and he leaves, both Scott and Homer start talking to her. Why was nobody calling out saying, no, don't come down here, he's crazy, or pounding on the glass, or whatever they had to do to alert her that something was wrong? They just sat there silently and let her be captured. And there is something about that that does not sit right with me, because if nothing else, they should be going crazy hoping that OA is going to let them out and help them get free. But instead they decide to be passive until Hap walks away and then tell her all these deep thoughts about how to get through it and how it's her own fault that she ended up there. It's another moment that does not have a ring of truth to it. But now I will give OA credit that as soon as she mentions Homer, she's crying, she takes off running out of the house, and she goes back to her bed and she's rocking. And even though I have a lot of doubts with a lot of things in her story, her response to that seemed truthful to me. It was very genuine and painful. And it could be a symptom of PTSD, but it was honest enough that I believe she believes it. I hope that this is making a lot more sense for everybody and it's helping everybody see where I got to where I got with my theories. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed enough to like, subscribe, and share this video. I've also got a lot of other videos on my channel that you are fully encouraged to go check out. Plus, you can find me on Facebook at Say Halo Goodbye, which is my gamer tag, or Twitter at _Fanily.